All right, now that we got past the scary, this meeting is being recorded message, we're gonna jump in and I'm gonna teach you DocuSign from start to finish. With that, we're gonna touch a little bit on the command side of things. We're going to create templates specifically to a buyer. You could do the same thing for a listing. And then we're gonna actually create a buyer transaction. So for those of you that want to follow along either in the room with me on your computer, or if you have a second screen and you can watch at the same time, you can do that. This will also be recorded and shared out. So those of you that want to reference back to this, you're able to. We're working on the assumption that you know how to create an opportunity. Within that opportunity, you know how to start a room in DocuSign. In the event you don't know how to do that, you can always reference the tech orientation videos on how to get to that step. So you'll see on the screen here that I've shared, I've got a sample buyer. I've selected a residential checklist for newer resale. Depending on your market center, your checklist items might look slightly different because you have different brokers in charge. And then the under contract folder, closed folder, we know that these are the documents that are required, right? So again, we're functioning under that assumption. I'm gonna move relatively quickly through certain steps, but I'm gonna stop frequently for questions. So if you have questions, just hold them because I'll probably end up answering that question in that chunk of time, okay? And then we'll come back in those moments where I stop and answer any questions about what we've done up to that point in time. So I've already created the DocuSign room. So I clicked that start a transaction button in the top right of the checklist, right? And I can click go to transaction. And this is gonna open up DocuSign rooms. Now we know this is where we would add documents. We're gonna come back and add those documents in a moment. Okay, first, we're gonna go create templates for our documents. For those of you that have written lots of offers, Barbara and Lynn, this might apply to you. People in the room, you've written at least a couple offers. We typically answer the same information on a contract over and over and over again, right? So we know that majority of the time we're going to use the same attorney, right? Or the majority of the time, I'm always going to select appraisal contingency, or the majority of the time I'm always going to select financing contingency. We can create a template for that. The template will auto apply all those fields. We just double check them, make sure they haven't changed. And it's going to save us a little bit of time on the interest. Okay. Hopefully that will be helpful. Move my screen around here. All right, so in DocuSign rooms up top, this is one of the tricks I wanted to teach you today is how to create a template. You can do this with any document. We cannot yet template the signatures beyond the pre-tagged roles, but I can template all the fillable fields. So I went to My Docs at the top, and then I have three options. I have personal, forms, and form templates. I'm gonna go to form templates. You'll see I already have two in here that I've been playing around with. We're gonna recreate this one. We're also gonna create one for the buyer contract, okay? So up in the top right, we're gonna click the blue create form template, and it's gonna pull up a search feature where we can go pick what document we want. Are you good? Oh. So I'm gonna go to DocuSign form group because I know I can find documents faster that way. I'm gonna go to the buyer resale list, and this is gonna apply to every version of this document that you'll have this option of template. It's not just the one from this group. This is just a way for me to find it a little faster. So I'm gonna go find that SCAR 130 form. I'm gonna use it, and we're gonna fill it out. Now, we know that our brokerage is always gonna be the same on a buyer agency contract, right? In my case, my brokerage is Keller Williams Palmetto. Some of you on this are Keller Williams Columbia. So you would put that there. I know that the majority of my business is done in residential, right? It's not often that I sell commercial, industrial, or land. You can have multiple templates for each document if you wanted to create one for land versus residential, or you can just change it. Know that the template doesn't make those fields unchangeable. It's just going to apply the default, and you can go in and adjust them when we dump the contract into the room.
The top line there should be auto.
This top line, your buyer names, those are going to pull in from the opportunity.
Okay,
So
that's the
yeah,
buyers.
so the buyer name 1, buyer name 2, those are going to automatically pull from your opportunity. The brokerage name should auto pull too, but this will overwrite anything it auto pulls. Purpose of agency, we're going to go residential. General description, this is where we're going to put the type of unit that we're looking at. Also remember, I am not your broker in charge. I'm also not an attorney, so I'm not teaching you how to write law today. That's just my little disclaimer. And I'm not giving you real estate advice as your broker in charge. I'm simply giving you factual information that I have verified with our brokers. Some of your brokers allow a couple things a little differently. I'm going to teach you the way that I was taught that will pass either broker's muster, if you will. So in this case, I'm going to put single family home because the majority of what I sell, again, is single family homes, right? If they're looking for a condo or townhome, you would just change that once you dumped it into the room. Approximate price range, you want to make sure we're being specific here. Greater than $1 is not acceptable, okay? So if you know their budget is 500,000, you could put up to 500,000. I'm going to leave this blank for purposes of the template because it's going to be very unique to each client, right? There's no blanket there, and greater than $1 is not an acceptable term. General location, for those of you on the Zoom in Sumter, you could put Sumter in the surrounding areas. You can get as specific as you want. Just remember, if you go outside of that area, you're going to not be under agency, and then we're going to be an implied agency, right? So we want to make sure that whatever location we put here includes the majority of where we're going to look. So you could do, for those of you in Columbia, you could do Columbia and surrounding areas, and that is okay. But if you know they only want to be in Lexington County and they're adamant that you put Lexington County there, and then all of a sudden they want to switch and look at Richland County, you need to amend your buyer agency contract and change that location. You could put the Midlands, yes. So the Midlands would work. Those of you that might be in the Low Country, those of you might be in the PD, or in the upstate, you could do it, depending upon your area. The thing to keep in mind is a client of yours, and I think Lynn is on this call, and I think we talked about this last week when I was in Sumter. Sometimes we want to lock that client down, and we want to make sure that if they go to work with another agent somewhere else in the state of South Carolina, that they have to talk to us first. Okay, so like if they might be considering Columbia or Charleston, and they don't have an agent in Charleston yet, you can say, oh, well, let me know when you want to work with an agent in Charleston and I can make a referral, right? And so you lock them down in their buyer agency for the general location is the state of South Carolina, right? Surrounding areas is vague.
So they can't really just do anything.
Right, but the state of South Carolina guarantees, right? So I would interpret, and obviously this would be up to a judge, but Columbia and surrounding areas, I'm going to think Columbia and literally the surrounding counties, probably, right? That's what our MLS is Columbia and the surrounding counties, for those of you that are in the CMLS. However, there are reasons for wanting to lock down, right, someone in the entire state. However, if you get someone on the other end of the spectrum, they're already working with an agent in Charleston, their buyer agency agreement is specific to Charleston, you can execute another buyer agency agreement for Columbia and the surrounding areas, or Sumter and the surrounding areas, as long as that existing buyer agency doesn't conflict, okay? Again, the majority of the time, the general location for me is going to be Columbia and the surrounding areas. Preferred terms, remember this is going to be our loan type. That's going to be, again, very unique to each individual client. So I probably would leave that blank. We're going to scroll on down. I know we all love completing section 5, and we always forget at least one checkbox or one field. This will help us eliminate that if our terms are generally the same. For me, if I'm using option 1, it's almost always the greater of $0 or 3% of the purchase price, and if within 90 days after expiration. Okay, that is what I typically always do. Option B is not going to be selected. Those of you that might use this, just make sure you clear it with your broker first. I know that Lori, as a downtown broker, does prefer that every field has at least something in it.
How many days did you recommend?
90 days, within 90 days of expiration. 60 works too, 30 works. It's really up to you. I use 90. Term of agency, again, is going to be very unique to each transaction. We're going to leave that blank. The initials happen in the initial stage. Oh, section 10, page 3 of the buyer agency agreement. The number of times I've heard our brokers talk about that they have to kick this back all because of that one checkbox, because we forget about it. It's a radio button in the very middle of a document. And unless we're tabbing through, we're going to forget to click it if we're in a hurry. So instead, I'm going to say that we do have the buyer's permission to disclose. And in the event you don't, you just need to change it when you dump the document into the room. It would be a rare exception that you're not going to disclose someone's identity. What would be a reason we would not want to disclose someone's identity? Famous person, right? If we have a former president coming to town to buy a house, we probably don't want to disclose their identity, right? Because someone's going to try to take advantage of the situation, or it could be discriminatory, right? So we might not want to. The other case that I've seen it used before is in the case of a divorce where one spouse wants to buy the house out from underneath the other spouse, and they're selling the home. That would be another reason. Contingencies, I'm just going to put 2 dashes there. I don't use them. Some of you might have a contingency. This would also be something like if you charge a transaction fee for every transaction that you do. There are agents that do that. It gets charged on the Alta. Again, all the email, phone, contact info, that's going to be unique to the transaction. And then it's got already Keller Williams Palmetto at the bottom because it's already at the top. Any questions over completing the fields of this document? No?
And there's no way to auto that section 7, because we know that we always want to pretty much.
There's no way to auto signatures
have
yet.
that.
Yep. So the signature piece, my understanding is we'll be able to template that in the near future, but I don't know if near future is 30 days or like 3 to 6 months. But DocuSign is working for us to be able to also template signatures without having to go in and edit them. Okay. So I'm going to hit save and close. Now, I should have changed the name of that. It's okay that I didn't. It just left it as SCAR 130 exclusive right to buy buyer agency contract template. Okay. I can go back in and click edit, and I can edit anything I want in those fields. You can also click edit of the name up top. Okay. You don't have to change the name of it if that's the only one you have and you're not going to do multiple versions, then it works. If you're someone that frequently works in land and frequently works in residential and you want to have 2 different versions, or you have a lot of things that you see 2 different instances of, you could create 2 different templates for that, right? I mean, we could do it that way. In this case, I'm just going to label it residential, just in case maybe I wanted to do one as land, right? I don't do many land deals, but I could. I'm going to go ahead and save and close. Any questions over the process of creating that template? Okay. For those of you that might have cameras on, I can't see your faces, just an FYI. So if you have a comment or it is a nod of a head and there is a, like, I have questions, just take yourself off mute, speak up. Because I can't see your faces the way I'm presenting in our training room. We're going to go ahead and do this same thing, and we're going to do it for the CMLS contract. You could do this for the state contract as well, for those of you that work in the state contract. I know a lot of you I coach. I went really fast that time. Buyer. You're gonna actually, it's gonna be rare that you go outside the state house.
Oh, I didn't.
Yeah, so do buyer resale. Sorry. And then CCRA contract for sale. That third one down. I'm getting that changed this week. So just an FYI, if you click a button, a radio button, and you don't unclick it before you save it, you cannot undo it. Now, for those of you that are like, I need to be able to undo those, I promise I'm getting that fixed. DocuSign is in the process of fixing that, and it will become a different button. In this case, I'm not going to template it with that checked, right? Unless I am always buying homes as an agent for myself, right? Where I'm party to the contract. The date is going to change, right? Buyer and seller name is going to change. Under section 1, though, in our CMLS contract, the client is always going to be, right? We don't do transaction brokerage, therefore we would not have a customer. And it would be rare that you have a seller that is a customer, not a client, okay? In the event of a for sale by owner, they would be considered a customer. They're not your client. They didn't sign a listing agreement with you. They're representing themselves. That would be an example of switching it to customer on a seller. Okay.
Are we doing a buyer or seller right now?
We're doing a buyer. So this is the contract of sale. But you would go ahead and check that box on behalf of the listing agent.
I got you.
So if the house is in the MLS and they've signed an exclusive right to sell, which means 99% of the time they have, right? Or an exclusive agency agreement, then they're a client. Okay. It would be a for sale by owner that they would not be a client, or transactional brokerage, which you would know that in the MLS, it would be listed and then you would switch it.
And the buyer would be client as well.
Yeah. Buyer and seller.
There's a yellow thing over it.
Yeah. 99% of the time buyer and seller 99% of the time are be client. So I'm going to go ahead and template those. All of section 2 is going to be unique to the transaction, all of section 3. Section 4, a lot of us use the same attorney for every transaction. Okay, so you could go ahead and put it in there.
The reason I used somebody.
I typically, with new transactions, if you're an agent doing transactions for the first time, I recommend people to NGC or Blair Cato, because they help guide you through the process more. And you'll learn the process of what an attorney does. If I were to send you to Mark Thomas or Gillis Law Firm or some of the other smaller law firms, you're going to send the contract, you might get a receipt of acceptance, and then you're not going to hear from them until 2 days before closing, unless there's something wrong. And that's just common. It's just they're smaller. They don't have the support staff that are constantly updating. So if you're not asking them, it's not going to happen typically. So every law firm is a little different. I often use Mark Thomas. I've used NGC. I've used Blair Cato. And like I said, that's where I learned how the process worked in the state of South Carolina, was using those law firms. They're great. There are a lot of big agents that use both of them.
Today I did a thing, it was the Mark Thomas, and that's when I never saw them. That seems to be the go-to.
There are a lot of agents in the downtown office that use Mark Thomas.
It's very convenient.
Yep. Now I put the to be delivered within 48 hours of ratification. That's how I write my contracts for earnest money. So unless the earnest money has already been delivered to the attorney, that's where I put it. I've seen some of you put it in the contingency or in the other terms. It also works there. However, if I'm talking about earnest money here, I normally put it right there, okay? The dollar amount is gonna change, whether check, cash, or wired is gonna change, okay? Transaction costs, those are gonna change. Financing, the majority of the time, are we contingent on financing? Yeah, it's not every day we represent cash buyers like Leah. Your financing type is going to change, right? So we're going to leave that blank. Appraisal contingency. If it's not a cash buyer, odds are your appraisal contingency is going to be there. If you're going to do a non-cash buyer and you're going to waive the appraisal contingency, you better talk to that lender first. Don't waive the appraisal contingency unless it's a cash buyer. That's not waiving the appraisal contingency. That's an appraisal gap addendum. That would be different. So if you have a buyer in this market that's crazy, wanting to pay above whatever it appraises at, that's going to be an appraisal gap addendum. That's not waiving the appraisal contingency. A waiving the appraisal contingency says no matter what it appraises for, we have no recourse. Section 7 is going to change. Majority of the time, 7A is going to be at closing, right? They're going to take possession at closing. Then we dive into the inspection, due diligence, and pages 3 and 4. For those of you that do not use the CMLS contract, I apologize. You can do the same thing with the state contract. Home warranties, you could choose whether you want to template this or not. Pre-pandemic, it was a habit that I always encouraged my buyer to ask for a home warranty. It was always 210 home warranty, and it was always the buyer agent ordering it and the seller paying for it. And the amount was $645. So I would have templated that all day long. In this market, it is so rare that I ask for a home warranty. However, you might want to talk to your buyers about them buying a home warranty themselves because it is still valuable. I just had a listing go live last night as an example. Okay, listing goes live, but they signed their agreement like 2 weeks ago. And they said, well, like 2 weeks after we moved in, the ice maker and water line quit working in the fridge and one of the burners went out on the stove. And I said, they've just bought their house 10 months ago with me. All right, and they have to sell already. And I said, well, why haven't you called the home warranty company? He went, oh, I kind of forgot I had one. He called the home warranty company. They sent someone out, and for $75, actually it was a $50 because we did the buy down, a $50 service fee. They repaired the water line and repaired the stove. So instead of getting to inspections once the home goes under contract and the fridge having to be replaced potentially because they want the more expensive repair, or the stove having to be replaced because they don't want it to be faulty, we've already circumvented that. When the home is inspected, that's not going to be an issue. So I would encourage you. It also helps our home warranty people out. Business is slow for them right now and money is tight. All right. Think about it. Us as agents, if we don't sell a house, we don't make money. Well, if they don't sell home warranties, guess what? They don't make very much money. So support your home warranty people and help them out by encouraging your buyers to buy a home warranty or your sellers to go ahead and put one on the house. Yeah, you would. In the CMLS contract, the local contract, it will be provided paid by the buyer. Yep, you would still put it on there. Just make sure in the email where you submit your offer to the listing agent, let them know that a home warranty has been included, paid for by the buyer, just so they don't quickly glance over it and think that it's the seller paying for it. Just let them know. Property documentation. Some of you work in short sales or relos a lot. The majority of the time, it's not going to be subject to a third party. Like, so I'm going to template it that way. You could always change it. Some of you always work in where the majority of your purchases are going to be public water and sewer. Remember, you can always change it.
You don't know what the heck, should just leave it blank and fill it out as a new basis?
No, you're always going to you're always going to complete this section. So
But should I wait to complete it as my point or template?
That's again up to you. I would template it and then double check the information. Okay. But that's up to you. Again, the majority of the time, you're not going to be representing a deal that has a third party approval. Now that could change. Right now, there's not a ton of foreclosures and short sales out there because we've been under a moratorium on all that, right? Like things
Yeah.
haven't been happening. Yeah, so third-party sale, that's gonna be where maybe it's a short sale, so it's been in threat of being foreclosed on. The seller has a chance to sell it first via short sale. And the bank would have to approve the amount it sold for. Okay,
And then they just pay the bank off.
yeah. Or a corporation or a relo company. So maybe a relocation company is helping pay for their transition and move, right? And they have to pay a certain amount, right? Depending on how the relo is worked and what business is taking them somewhere. You'll know if it's one of those.
I know, and I'll.
Yeah, and you would change that.
My phone will be blown up.
Yep, my phone will be blown up, and that's okay. Flood zone, again, it's up to you whether you want to template this or not. I think almost every home, maybe with one exception that I've sold since I've lived in Columbia, only one has been in the flood zone, and it was a lake house.
And we still recommend that they get flood insurance.
We give them the flood insurance or the flood zone disclosure, and we let them make the decision, right? Yep. Because if you were here in the flood of 2015, there were a lot of homes that weren't in the flood zone. They didn't have flood insurance.
Yeah.
Those homes got flooded. Guess what
I
happened?
think Bethany was telling me about that. She's like, really, like, she has the map, she showed me.
Yep. And flood insurance, if your home is not in the flood zone, is not that expensive
Right.
because you're not in the flood zone. The threat is very low.
This one guy was telling me that he had flood insurance, hurricane insurance, wind insurance, and home insurance. His insurance was like $7,000, some ridiculous amount.
That's crazy.
Well, he's moving, but he goes, yeah, one doesn't do all.
Right. You have to piece it all together. And then the mandatory association fee, if you're buying in a community, it's probably going to be a mandatory association fee and a special assessment of a governing body included by limit to home association regime or otherwise. A special assessment is going to be where a home ownership association comes in and they're assessing a dollar amount above and beyond the mandatory association fees to help cover capital expenses. You most often see this in condo communities where they have to replace an elevator, right? Or they have to replace the roof, and the reserves that they have held don't cover it. So they have to take an assessment of all of the group of people that live on the property to help cover the cost of replacing the roof. Because costs are more than they anticipated and the reserves aren't in place, okay? I'm not gonna template those in my case. Not 5 or D or E, no. Because again, those are so up in the air, like you could template it if you wanted, but again, it's up to you. I mean, you could go is not, and then always just change it and add the information. All right, we're skipping right along. Expiration of offer is going to be unique to the transaction. Now, do what? 4 hours? 4 hours of expiration? It's happened. I'm done shorter.
I did that too.
I'm going to go ahead and put my information in here. Okay. It's less I have to do at the time. All I have to do is then input the seller information. Some people do not like putting the information in for the listing agent. I'm going to give you a reason to enter it, and not in the template, obviously, because you're going to have different listing agents for every one you buy. However, so a reason to put listing agent information, take the couple minutes, put in their license number, put in their office code, add their phone number and email address. I have won offers before because I completed the entire contract. In multiple offer situations, something that will make you stand out is complete every field that needs to be completed. That includes the seller's agent name, company, license number, office code, email address, and telephone number. So their office code is going to be on the LLR. So if you go to LLR and look up their license through the licensing division, you can then click their brokerage name and it'll take you to the brokerage page and you'll see their office number. I always get mad. I don't get mad.
You always give me that.
Oh, give you that because I've always looked it up because it's been like 9:30 at night and I'm helping you write an offer. Don't be sorry. It's part of the job. All right, I'm going to change the name of this really quick. And I'm just going to leave it as contract of sale residential. I'll just name it standard. All right, I'm going to hit save and close. Now we're going to get to the fun part. We're actually going to add documents to the room. 23318 is your office code. Is that what you need? What are you looking at?
No, what was standard, what were you just talking
Oh,
about?
I just changed the name of it
Oh,
to be contract of sale residential dash standard.
I'm sorry, I'm so sorry.
Nope, you're fine. All right, any questions on templating? We're going to move on to the actual DocuSign process. This is a setup piece, right? It's something that we would have to do ahead of time, but we only have to do it once. Now our templates are there, they're ready to go, and it helps us become more efficient down the road, right? All right, now I'm going to go to my room. I had the other tab open. Does everybody know how to get back to their room? You can click room is up top. And your room should pop up. Is everybody in their room? You've seen this screen.
All you have to
Okay, so
click
now
on
find your
the-
room. Whichever one you just set up. Did you create a room from an opportunity?
like at the
Go back to
beginning.
command up top
Sorry.
in your dashboard. You didn't even create one. You just went straight to DocuSign. Cheater.
I created one that's gonna buy a house soon, but not. that's- Can't hurt to have these documents already in here.
So you don't have to go through this process. If you just want to watch, you can just watch. Because the template part is done, right? We've created the template. That's what matters. You all are a mess. I wish all of you that were on Zoom were in the room right now, experiencing what I'm experiencing. All right, so from command, we've created the transaction, right? We've started the transaction, which created our room. Those of you that use zip forms, this would be different. You're welcome to continue to use zip forms. And you can upload those documents. Now, DocuSign rooms, I'm in the documents tab and I'm adding documents, okay? Now, if I had a property disclosure, I could upload that property disclosure. I could upload my lead-based paint. I'd upload that using the computer button. In this case, I'm going to add forms to the room using add button and then selecting DocuSign forms. This window should look familiar to you if you've used it, if you've written a contract inside of DocuSign rooms. On the left-hand side, depending on what office you're a part of, you'll have a different list. Mine looks crazy because I'm part of 2 offices, okay? For those of you at KW Palmetto, you have a much smaller list. For those of you at KW Columbia, your list is much longer. At the bottom, you have the libraries. The libraries are every form you have access to. If you're missing this SCAR library, that means we need to enter your NERDS ID in the preferences. You should have all these other documents, but if your SCAR library is missing, we have to add your NERDS ID.
There's one that I don't have in my rooms, but maybe it's because I'm Palmetto.
You won't have the 684.
That's what it is.
Yeah. So you'll only have one KW library, depending on which office you're a part of. If you're in Palmetto or Sumter, it'll be 1128. If you're at Columbia, it'll be 684. It'll be the ones you have. In this case, I'm going to go to the short list. I don't want to go to a library and have to find every individual document that I need. I'm going to go to buyer resale in this case. For those of you that don't use the CMLS, the local Columbia contract, there's an outside of CMLS listing and buyer package for you. Now, I've got document lists that are required, okay? And I can scroll down and find all the other documents I might need on this transaction. It's going to cover almost everything. But in this case, we're going to execute a SCAR 110 and 130, so buyer agency. And you'll notice when I click SCAR 130, the little template box pops up to the right. See that? You good over there? Okay.
So I click on the one we just created.
Yep. So I have 3 because I've created 3 different templates for this same document. If you've only created 1 template, you only have the option of 1. It's unique to that document. So right now, if I didn't select a template, it's just going to load a blank document, right? I'm going to have to go in there and add all the information that we templated. In this case, I'm going to add the new template that I just created. I'm going to go ahead and add the contract of sale to the room too. And we're going to add that template as well. Okay. And now I'm going to add selected. Obviously, there are other documents I would add to the room. We don't have everything, right? I don't have the inspection disclaimer. I don't have the flood insurance disclosure. I don't have a property disclosure in place.
I'm getting a message. The templates are conflicting data. Prioritize the templates. Find them. Highest priority. I must have put something in wrong.
You probably entered a field that automatically enters from the room. If you put a name in, does it give you the option to prioritize?
Yeah, it says prioritize the templates by number one highest.
Let me see.
I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry. This is why we
like
do this.
something, yeah. So.
Oh, okay. So there are overlapping fields inside of documents. Okay, so what probably happened is you probably spelled the brokerage name one way in one document, and you spelled it differently in a different document. You either have a space bar, like an extra space in something. So in this case, it doesn't matter, prioritize 1 or 2. Like you could just go ahead and do it. And then we'll go back and look at that template later and see what happened.
Yeah.
But the way these documents work, they all have fillable form fields, right? So if I add the address of the property on this document and another document requires an address field, it's going to automatically pull that address over. In this case, one of the fields that we put in the template, you also put in another template and you either spelled it or typed it out slightly different. It could even be as simple as you capitalize something different.
This is really, I just took it. Now for some reason I have 3 documents instead of 2. Oh no, because
No.
one of them we do have 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to open the exclusive right to buy. Now, for those of you that have done this document in the past, you've had to enter every field, right? How nice is it that some fields are already completed for you? Just make your process faster. You're writing, I wasn't about to create a template with you while writing a contract. So this is where now we would put,
Okay, so I'm not getting them all in one.
you'll have a question? Yeah, you can only open one document at a time.
Right, I was gonna put it in an envelope, but you didn't do that.
No, not yet.
Okay.
So in order to edit the form fields, we don't put it in an envelope yet.
All right, so you just click on that.
I just click on that document and I edit the fields. Yep. So in this case, we templated it, right? But we didn't template every field. So now I would open it up and I would just go in and add in the blanks. What's that face for, Leah? Did you pick the right template? All right, my term of agency. For those of you that write 6-month agency agreements, don't forget 6 months now puts us into next year. You need to make sure the expiration is in 2022.
And this is just for pretend that I'm not doing this. Just watch.
You can just watch, yeah. Since you're gonna actually, this is a live room that you'll use later for this person.
I'm thinking, yeah.
Then I would just watch. Yeah. Or you can archive this opportunity and recreate it later if you want to follow along. All right. Just keep in mind, I've done this before where I just was like rushing, right? Like I'm typing really quickly and I did like, but it was towards the end of the year. It was like a November something start date and it was like an April end date. And I put 2020 and 2020. I didn't put 2021 on the expiration. And technically my buyer agency was never valid. Right? We can't leave it open-ended. We have to have an end date and the end date has to be after the start date. So always make sure that you have the right year, particularly now if you're writing 6-month ones, we're within that window or 6 months out is next year. Oh, section 10, it's already completed. Your broker is going to love you because you didn't forget to check the box on section 10. Y'all remember that rule, like take care of the secretaries and the janitors, right? And they'll take care of you. Well, in the same way in real estate, take care of your broker in charge and they'll take care of you. They'll take care of you regardless because they love all of you. Make sure that you have 2 points of contact and your buyer's address. Okay, so we've moved on from the template phase here. This is not your office address. I'm putting your office address. None of you need to know where I live. I love you. I don't want to be egged.
We'll go and get your eggs.
From my chickens. Come steal the eggs from my, that's so cruel. Steal the eggs from the chickens in my backyard to egg my house. Not okay. Lynn thought that was funny too.
Hey, I have chickens too, so that would not be funny.
It would not be. Lynn, I had a hawk try to eat one of mine this morning.
We had a big massacre a few months ago from some dogs for sport.
Oh.
And in the meantime, the hawks, after that, we waited a while and the hawks would actually land on the post and just scour and look to see if we had any more.
Oh, that's awful.
I live on a farm, so yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to come see your farm. I want a farm.
Well, I don't know. Oh, we got soybeans planted, just crop the wheat. You'll enjoy it.
There you go. I love it.
See?
All right, now we would go through the contract of sale the same way, right? We'd fill in all the fields, we'd fill in the information, right? Today's date. We put in the seller's name, we put in all the address information, right? In this case, we'll buy the listing that I just had go live this morning. And you can just tab through these fields. It's another way to make sure that you don't miss anything is if you start at the top of the document and you just hit tab to get to everything. So instead of using your mouse and clicking from box to box, you stuck over there, guys? You good? Okay, sure. All right, so I'd go on, I'd put all the rest of my information in, right? I'm gonna make sure that everything is checked right, all the boxes are clicked.
that I knocked him out and I didn't mean to. Oh, there he is. Hey, I got a client talking to me. Come on now, I'm trying to do 3 things at one time.
You know, that's how we work as realtors, right?
Yeah, well, this little dude right here, I'm gonna have to hurt. Anyway.
Oh, love it. Just don't hurt me, Lynn, and we'll be all right.
You never know. I'm old.
Kathy's in the room. She said, older than me?
I think I'm older than everybody.
I don't know, I'm feeling that.
Kathy said she's not so sure.
Oh, no. Everybody asks me, well, what's your 5-year plan? Be alive. That's it.
That's great. I love it. Lynn, I knew I liked you.
Wait till you see this contract that I'm fighting with this dude over.
Ooh.
I'm gonna send it to you first before I send it to her. I can tell you that.
Okay, come on, send it to me. I'm happy to look at it.
Oh, please, come on, dude. Yes. Empty. Come on.
All right, so we would put our room, now we have our documents completed, right? We're assuming they're completed. We filled out every field. You all are looking at me like, I already know these things because you just taught me this one-on-one.
No. I'm still like going, what do I click? No.
You're good. So we select all the documents we want in an envelope, right? We just hover over the box and we select the little dot that pops up, right? These are the ones I all want to DocuSign. And then up top, after I clicked these, you'll notice, let me take them away. There's nothing here, right? There's a blank square here, just a gray bar. When I select a document, I now have all these options. Whoops, I didn't mean to open that document. Sometimes we click things we don't want to click. Go back. There we go. So I've got all 3 selected. And then up top here, I could copy them, I could move them, I could email them, combine them, archive, unarchive, or delete. Really, I just want to create an envelope. So this is how we go to the e-signature phase. This is a step that in the near future, hopefully going to come out, and we'll be able to fill out the fields like we just did and the signatures at the same exact time, and then just send it. We won't have to dump it into an envelope and then move it. So I always like to drag mine into the right order. And when I say right order, there is really no right order other than if I'm presenting to my client, I want them to see them in the order that I want to, 1, review them, and 2, that I want them to see in case of for license law purposes, right? If I don't already have a buyer agency executed when I'm writing the contract, I want to make sure that they see the disclosure in the buyer agency before they see the contract. If nothing else, for my own peace of mind, right? Which is what I like to do. But you do you, and whatever works for you.
So number 1, number 2, number 3.
Yep, so, and you can just click and drag them into whatever order you want. They're all there. And then we're going to add recipients to the envelope. Now, this is where a lot of people get fumbled up and they end up adding them by room participant or email address. And when you do this, you have to click and drag every signature and every initial onto the page. Okay. And that gets annoying and time consuming. And DocuSign's already done most of the work for us, and they've created pre-tagged roles. Now, we don't have templating available for this yet to template the signatures any further than the pre-tagged roles. However, it is coming. I know a lot of you hear me say that a lot, like it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. I promise you it really is coming. It's just not there yet. They can't build it, they can't build it overnight, but they're working on it. In this case, I selected pre-tagged roles. I'm representing the buyer. So I would go ahead and select however many buyers I have that are on the contract. Over to the right under recipient, I would select in the dropdown whoever the recipient is. that being my buyer, right? In this case, I used myself as a buyer, so I would send it to myself as the recipient. Now, you're going to ignore seller 1, seller 2, and listing agent because you're none of those. You're not going to fill those out. You just need to sign it. In this case, because buyer agency requires an agent signature. If you are an agent in the KW Palmetto or Sumter locations, you're going to sign it yourself. It does not have to go to Lori for signature. She doesn't require that she sign a buyer agency agreement. In your independent contractor agreement, she has given you permission as licensee to sign it yourself. In the event you are in the KW Columbia office, you will sign it. Then you'll have to go back and add a signature block for Tracy to also sign it. She requires that she does sign all buyer agency agreements. Most of you on this call are downtown or the Palmetto or Sumter offices. All right, that's it. I'd add the pre-tagged roles. I'd click add selected, and they're going to add them to the envelope. Now you'll notice on the left-hand side of each person in the envelope, I've got a 1 and a 2. That is the signing order. So it's going to go to buyer 1 first. It's going to have them sign it. Once they have finished signing, then it'll send to me as the buyer agent to sign number 2. Okay. If I changed mine to 1, they're both going to come at the same exact time. I'd be signing while they're signing. In this case, it's not going to let me change it to 1 because I am 1. And that's because I'm on both. Okay. It's because I am buyer 1 and buyer 2. Now, over to the right-hand side, some little tips and tricks, some little things. How many of you have ever worked with someone where they don't trust technology in real estate or not? I heard someone.
Me.
Yep. There are people out there, right, Lynn, that don't trust tech. And they're like,
Oh, I do a lot of handwritten on the countertops and on the cars and stuff and have to upload them a lot. And I keep hard copies of everything just in case.
Right. I love it. In the event you have someone that wants to do paper, obviously you can do paper. In the event someone just, they don't want to do, they're okay with the technology piece, but they want it to be more secure, you can add access authentication. So here, I could add this access authentication. They can give me a code or I can give them a code. Okay. So I could give them a 4-digit code or they could give me a 4-digit code, and that's how they would log in to access their document. So when they get the email that says, please DocuSign, and they click review document, it's going to ask them for whatever that authentication code is in order to actually access the documents. Okay. It does that so that it adds that extra layer of protection. It's just like 2-factor authentication for Facebook or Twitter or any other online platform where it's double secure. This is the same way. I'm not going to put that in an email. I would call them and say, hey, I gave you an authentication code. It's 5286. You're going to put that in when you go to access your documents. Yep. Yep. The other thing you can do here is add a private message. Okay. So let's say you have multiple parties on this, right? And you're sending it to buyer 1 and then yourself to sign, and then it's going to the broker, right? You could just put a note in there to the broker that says, you know, here's the buyer agency for, right? Like, thanks so much, or I really appreciate you, right? Like, you could just put extra messages in there that are unique to that one person. Just that one signer is going to get that message. In the event you have a transaction coordinator, someone that just needs to receive a copy, you could also add someone else that just receives a copy. Okay. You could also have someone specify a recipient. So let's say buyer 1 then wanted it to go to someone else, right? You could say buyer 1 specifies the recipient and they get it, and then they would say who it goes to. It's going to be rare that you would do that, but It is an option.
So when I send my documents over there and I only have to send over the contract, I don't have to sign it. So I put myself in you and then sign and then send back.
If you don't have to sign it, you don't have to add yourself to it at all. Because you'll have access to it in your room. Correct. Because you're the owner of the room. Correct. Extra step. Yeah, you don't have to add yourself unless you have to sign. Then this message to all recipients, I could put whatever I wanted there in the subject line. I always leave the please DocuSign because it's typically the easiest thing for them to find in their email. Be like, you just received an email and it says please DocuSign, and then whatever you want after it, right? In case they're having trouble finding it.
It's good though to write something afterwards, because what ends up happening is you have a bunch of things you have to open everything to see what
Yeah.
it is.
Well, and if I send you this one and then I send you another one and another one and another one, you have 4 emails that say please DocuSign. Well, which one am I looking at?
Right.
Right? I need the one that is offer for, or I need the one that is revised offer for, or counter offer for, or addendum to, right? Or repair addendum for whatever address. You can put a message there if you want. It's not required. It's up to you. Now we would click next. Now this is the phase where we go. It's going to load here. All right. So we've got our documents in the envelope and they're in the order that we put them in. So they're in the order here. On the left-hand side, let's navigate this window a little bit and talk about some of the things we can do inside of an envelope. On the left-hand side, you've got a drop down. Now my name's in here twice, right? Because I'm both the agent and buyer one. But you would see different people's names. So you would see Andrew Morrison, Leah Stark, Kathy Cobb, Lynn Vining, right? You see whatever names your different people are, and you can toggle back and forth, and everybody has a color assigned. It's normally yellow, blue, then the third person's purple, and then I think green maybe. I think that's the most I've ever had is 4, and it's green is the 4th one, I think. Color doesn't necessarily matter, right? What matters is that the right name is associated with the right with a color, and that you're on the right person. And then you have all of these fields. So a signature, that's going to be a full signature. Initial is an initial. Date signed is the date they're signing, and it will automatically timestamp. The name is their full name as it's entered in DocuSign. Their email address is their email address. Most likely company and title aren't going to pull over because we don't have those, right? It's just going to be blank. You'd have to fill it in. You could add a text box, a check box, a drop down, a radio, a payment item. You can even put attachment. So if you're using DocuSign for something else, you could have them attach a photo, attach a PDF, attach proof of insurance. You can add a note that just shows up as the explaining to them. It won't show up in the final version. They can approve or decline. Okay, those are their fields.
Oh, that's what happened when I did it in one. I have a text.
Yes. Yeah.
And it went away. And I had to reset.
Oh, so you added a note instead of text.
I think so.
Yeah. So if you add a note, the note's going to disappear.
Okay, in the text.
If you add text, it's going to be text. Yep.
Mhm.
Under custom fields, you can create your own custom fields and you could name them. So if you have certain text that you use all the time, you could add it in here. You'll see all of these other fields. What these are, I have no clue. Someone else has gone in and added some things. San Diego, California, KW office. It's probably the only person that is using custom fields in all of KW is this one person in San Diego, California. Just know that it'll show up there. Notary fields, you're not going to use that. Unless you're a notary, there are DocuSign versions that allow that. Pre-fill tools. So if you're countering an offer and you're uploading that flat PDF, right? So it's not the original version. You're having to click and drag initials and tools, and you want to cross through something. Under this pre-fill tools, the fourth option down is align. And I can click, drag, and click, and I can cross through. See that? Click, drag, click. So if I'm countering, so let's say I get an offer on my listing tonight, right? So I have a listing that went live last night. It's listed for $235. They offer $225, right? And I want to counter that back. I could take that tool, cross through the $225, have them initial where I cross through, and add the new price.
Yeah, that, my guy did that with the,
Prepared in them.
with the time.
Oh yeah.
Something else to do with the time.
Yeah, if it expired and they want to up the expiration and extend it out, you could cross through the old date, initial, add the new date. Just remember, wherever one party initials, the other party also has to initial, or it will not get through compliance. So they go through and they go, okay, buyer's initials, seller's initials, buyer's initials, seller's initials. They have to match. Even if it gets a little crazy, there have to be equal number of sets. They accepted you? Hey, congrats.
Is this your second one? That's amazing.
Deal number 2 under contract. All right, so we would scroll through. We double check that all of our signatures and dates are in the right spot. I don't know why those are doubled up. That is really weird. Double check everything. Now this is where we really need to pay attention on the buyer agency agreement. Okay, up until now, all of these initials have had a colored background. Why is everything double? That's not okay. So I've got initials, initials. I get to page 2 of the buyer agency. All of a sudden I have initials that have a white background. Who knows what that means? It means it's optional. If it's optional, what do you think is going to not happen? My buyer's not going to sign it, right? For some reason, my DocuSign is glitching right now and it's got double initials on everything. So I'm going to click the initial box that is white background and not required. And over on the right-hand side, when I click on something, I get this option box that pops up on the right. I can now make it a required field and it changes the color. And then I just click the ones I want to delete and I click delete. Now there's more than one there and I don't know why. It's frustrating. I will get that fixed. Hopefully it's just a glitch in my document. I can click anywhere on the document and drag a box. It's going to select anything in that box and I can click delete and delete them all at once. On section 7 of the buyer agency, we know that we only need 3 of the 5 signed. So see if I just click with my mouse and I click and drag, see the box, let go, it selected all of them. And then I can click delete. Now, if I accidentally delete initials and I need to go back and add them, I just click it. It's going to make it really big. I can shrink it. Make this one required. We're scrolling down. Look at that. Section 10, the box is already checked. I didn't forget it. If I had forgotten it, and I'm in this stage, and I don't want to have to go back and change something, and go back out of this and save it, and then come back in and make like redo all my signatures. If it's something that simple, I can come here. I'm in my buyer's fields, and I click checkbox. I can bring a checkbox up here, drop it on the box, double click it, that'll fill it in, and then I can make it read only so that my buyer can't unclick it. So if I forgot to check a box in the field stage when I was in the room, I can drop a checkbox there, double click it, and then make it read only. That'll keep them from unchecking it, and it keeps you from having to go back and waste time, right? It's the most efficient way forward. The same way if you forgot a text field, if you left it blank and you just needed to add text, you could do the same thing. You could drag a text box over that field, fill in the text box, make it read only. They can't change the text box.
Funny, mine isn't saying read only.
So did you double click it and it's checked?
Yeah.
And then see this over here on the right? Then you would select read only. Are you not seeing that?
Well, it's just the 80% isn't coming up, so.
Oh, don't use the pre-fill tools. You can use that too. That was my bad. So I actually did it assigned to the client. So go to this option, fields, and I used that checkbox. So Kathy just pointed out something that I've not trained on before because I honestly forgot because it's a newer thing they created. So under the pre-fill tools, it used to only be the strike through. It was very recent that they added the text checkbox and radio. So instead of assigning it to a specific buyer or a specific person, because if you put it on the wrong person, it won't be seen by other people in the room. So only if I put it as the first person signing will it be seen by other people. I can also add it in the pre-fill tools and drop the checkbox and check it. You're right, Kathy, there won't be an option to make it read only because your client can't change it. If you use the pre-fill tools, it's assigned to everybody on the room and nobody can change it. So you were actually in the right spot. I was teaching you the wrong way, the old way. What you did didn't exist 2 months ago. So those are the kinds of things DocuSign is doing to make things better. So everybody rewind about 5 minutes, forget what I told you, and remember to use the pre-fill tools if you forgot a checkbox. The same for text, okay? So that gray text box or gray checkbox or the strike through line, those are all things that are on every deal. Did you get it? Did you say oh because you didn't get the counter, or did you get it? Oh, okay. Well, sometimes it takes a minute.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
All right, so we make sure everything's filled out. I always delete the time text stamp box. That way we don't have to deal with it, right? It's not a blank text box because the date stamp is going to automatically do it. The same on the contract. I'm going to go through and I'm going to edit. I'm working on getting these to where they're automatically required, guys, but it's not there yet. We make sure everything's where we want it. We delete the ones we don't want. Require these. Unless you're selling a property as is. So let's talk about that real quick. As is with due diligence versus as is without due diligence. Then explain it to us, Leah.
So with due diligence, they have a 10-day grace period to go back out. However, they don't necessarily have to fix it. You just have the option to start it.
Right, so our due diligence period is the period that we get to do inspections, right? As is with due diligence, you're right. I wouldn't explain it as it's a 10-day window to back out. I know that's not what you meant.
Like if something is up in inspection.
Yes.
And they don't necessarily have to fix it. If they
as is with due diligence is under the assumption that the seller's not willing to do anything, right? My buyer is moving forward going, I don't intend to ask for anything, but I want to be aware of any problems that might exist. So I'm going to do my due diligence and do inspections. What that doesn't mean is it doesn't mean you can't ask for something. You can still go back to the seller. They probably won't do anything. However, there are some sellers that don't realize there's something wrong with their home until an inspection's done. And now that they know there's something wrong with the home that might have to be disclosed, they might rather adjust the price and sell it to you than have to put it back on the market and find someone else.
Well, that's the whole thing, my stuff that's going on right now, like, they would have to disclose all that stuff that's wrong with the house, correct?
Technically,
They got out.
technically, they would have to disclose all that information because there are structural issues with the home. Right. Welcome to real estate in Columbia, South Carolina. $40,000 worth of repairs on an as-is home.
It's not.
Oh, that's right, not as is. In the event that you're doing as is, no due diligence, you better be really, really damn confident that you're good, and you should probably get your client to sign something that they understand beyond the contract that they're doing as is with no due diligence.
I'm always going to say due diligence.
And remember, if they're buying a home with traditional due diligence and not buying it as is, there are no required signatures here. You just leave it blank. Property condition disclosure statement. There are 3 exemptions. What are they? Why would I not have to create a property?
It's brand new.
Brand new. 2 others.
It's a church.
It's a church.
Nonprofit, I don't know.
No.
We're like,
We just grabbed it straws. We took that damn exam.
If both parties agree,
Okay.
or if it's an estate sale,
Okay.
they've never lived in the home, right? Or an estate that they're settling.
did you look at my contract?
No, you didn't send it to me.
You can go in and look at my DocuSign.
Oh yeah, you told me I didn't need you.
No, I know, I was just wondering if you did.
Then I kind of forgot about it.
I'll do it right.
I mean, you already sent it. So we'd go through, we double check everything. Now, for those using the local contract, we delete these. You only ratify once the contract's been accepted. You don't ratify when you're initially submitting the offer. So we would delete that. It's ready to be sent. Now we would send it. My watch just blew up because I hit send and it needs my signature. Now, right.
My niece will kill me. She'll be like,
So it takes me to the envelope screen. Now remember, we put everything in an envelope, we send it to them, it's in their email. If we realize there's a mistake and they've not opened it yet, we can click on the envelope, you can correct it, and you can come in here and you can change the receiver, you can change the name and email address, you can change the message, and if they have not opened the document and started signing, you can edit the signature fields by using this edit signing fields at the top. When I click edit signing fields, it's going to take me back to that very familiar window we were just at. It's showing that I'm in the correcting phase. And I could come in here and I could delete, move, change, replace, do whatever I need to do, click continue. It's going to take me back to the envelope and I can click send. It's going to send them the updated version. It's going to void the old version. It's going to let them sign it. In the event I had already opened it and started signing, these documents would each have a red lock button on them. I wouldn't be able to edit any of the signing fields, but I could edit the signer's information for those that have not signed yet. So if I made a typo in an email address or I spelled their name wrong, I could edit that. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and discard the changes. No. All right, once I sign it, it would complete those documents. They're going to show up in my document window as signed versions, okay? And then the form version will still be here. So you'll have a form version and a signed version. I think I just had DocuSign in an hour and a half.
Did you?
Yeah.
Awesome. Good, good, good.
Any questions over what we just did? Anything else you want to learn or questions about DocuSign in general? Uh-oh, Lynn's laughing at me because she knows that's a loaded question.
No, I'm just sitting here watching this and answering an email or two about somebody that's not listening to me. And I looked over there and I went, I'm just as lost as I can be. I was good up to a point. And so when you said you want to learn anything else, I'm going, dude, I haven't learned all that yet. But anyway, no, we're good. I will pick my way through it. And if I get in a jam, I am notorious for shooting something and sending it to you and going, what? And that's all you have to do is answer.
Yeah.
If it gets to that point, we usually work off of each other pretty well.
Okay. Well, you let me know. That's what I'm here for.
Okay, dear.
I can do for you guys. That's what I'm here for.
I got to roll.
Okay.
Talk to you. Thank you.
You too, Lynn. Bye.
Bye.
Barbara, any questions?
Nope.
All right. I'm going to let you go then. Let me know if there's anything I can do for you.